Welcome back, sports fans. After an eventful week in college football, Darren's got a grin that he cannot suppress. He has tried. It's going to be here all night, I
That's
think.
right.
We want to especially welcome Commodores and Razorbacks and
Oh, yeah.
Aggies.
Aggies, absolutely.
You have a lot to celebrate after this past week, and Vanderbilt was certainly celebrating from the stadium through the streets of Nashville, down
That's right.
Broadway, and
That's
all the
right.
way to the Cumberland River.
That's right. Look at that. There's another. I don't know how those got in there. I don't.
I didn't think it. I lost that bet, Darren. I thought you'd hit that picture quicker than 3 seconds.
You had the over under, and you were close though.
You brought that picture up quicker. It took the Malachi Moore to kick that football at the end of the game.
And yes,
So,
he did.
Darren, go ahead and take your moment here. This is an incredible. It's been talked about ad nauseum.
Absolutely.
An incredible
Absolutely.
upset. One of the greatest ever in the SEC, if not the greatest. Darren, I want to stop right here and give you your moment. I don't know if this is your first takeaway. If I was a betting man, I'd say it is.
Yeah.
But Darren, the floor is yours.
Why, thank you, sir. I'll just go ahead and make it my first takeaway. How's that? There we go. Let's start right there on my first takeaway. This is an incredibly nice family from Alabama that, oh, have I mentioned I was there? Have I mentioned that yet? I don't think I have I?
If you're listening, let's go ahead. What's the over under for the number of times Darren is going to mention that he was at the game?
It may come up double digits. There's your over under. Will it go into double digits? But I almost on a last second kind of some decision making and some things coming up, decided to head to Nashville. And you guys that have been with us from the very beginning are familiar with JT Jazzy Chef. And JT Jazzy Chef had a tailgate extravaganza. We did not actually get into the game because everything was so last minute, but we tailgated outside of the stadium. You saw the picture. That was a legitimate, that's right as the fireworks went off, as the victory was being celebrated. And we had some incredible tailgate food. It was a tacos and fajitas, and it was really, really, really enjoyable. This family ended up tailgating behind us. So after the game was over with and they came back from the stadium, they were nice enough, and I did not write their name down. I'm so apologetic. I'm hoping, I told them about the podcast. They said they would watch. Please, in the comments, tell us your family name because we'd love to give you credit, even if it's next week. They were willing to show us how they were feeling coming back from the stadium after that game. And I also just have to very quickly mention Dave and Chris, two incredibly nice, not only Alabama fans, but Alabama alumni that tailgated behind us as well. Very complimentary of Vanderbilt and the game, but super nice guys. As a matter of fact, I know they've already subscribed to our YouTube channel, which we love. Thank you guys. And we very much appreciate that. All right, so I
Darren,
mentioned I
mean,
was there, right?
yeah,
Okay.
there we go. Okay, I'm keeping track. How kind of that family to pose for a picture after that brutal loss.
After
Now,
taking a loss to Vanderbilt.
I hope they do watch this episode,
I hope
Darren,
so.
but they may not comment depending on how much you pile on in this episode. So just keep that in mind, Darren. We're trying to reach everybody in the SEC.
Well, let me say this specifically. If at some point during the episode I have anything to say about Alabama fans, it won't be about them or Dave and Chris. How's that? Does that? They're not included. They're exempt from any comments I have.
Just all the rest of them.
That's right. That's exactly right. All right. So takeaway one, let's talk about the Vanderbilt win. And I want, those are the words I want to focus in on. Is there's been a lot of talk, and all of it is very justifiable and understandable. The fact that Alabama is ranked, they're number one in the country. They're coming off a win over Georgia, who had not lost a regular season game in 4 seasons. Everything Alabama wants to have going for them, they have going for them. They come into Nashville. a game that everyone, there was a little bit of from national television and radio people. There was a little bit of an insulting conversation that took place going into the game of, hey, Vanderbilt's showing improvement. Alabama's only favored by 23, not 30, which again, a little bothersome as a Vanderbilt fan, but you get it because they have been favored by 30 in the past. So I just want to read a quick list of things that illustrate that Vanderbilt won this game. This was not a slip up. This was not a gimmicky, oops, what did Alabama let happen? Vanderbilt won this game. Vanderbilt never trailed. 418 yards of offense, plus 2 in turnovers, one of which was a pick six. The other was a pivotal strip search. That turned out to be complicated. Sorry. Strips. All right, let's try that one more time. One was a pick six. One of them was a pivot. I'm
Slow
very
down, Darren. I,
excited.
I
I'm
I know
very
you're
excited about
excited.
this game.
Yeah,
A
let's go.
pivotal
Pivot,
strip
pivotal
sack
sack.
is the words I was looking for.
Sounded like a undercover cop episode
There
for a
for a
second.
minute, it got a little out of control. Vanderbilt had 26 first downs. Time of possession, 42 minutes. Diego Pavia threw for 252 yards, carried the ball for 56 yards, and Vanderbilt had no 3-and-outs. Not a single 3-and-out series. And they were 80%, I'm sorry, 67% on third down, and Diego Pavia was at an 80% completion rate. This was an offense that took control of the game. And all of the talk about it being the most insane upset in SEC history, I get, understand, and agree with all of that. The thing I don't want to get lost in it is this is a Vanderbilt team that went out on the field and did what they expected to do. Now, admittedly and reasonably, they were the only people in the country that expected to do that. Nobody else, including most Vanderbilt fans, although, let's see, who was my upset pick? Oh, we'll get to that later. Uh,
Please, please, you earned this moment. You earned it. You
Vander,
earned it.
Vanderbilt did what this offense is designed to do, and the reason Clark Lee decided to go this direction in the New Mexico State overhaul. Everything that he saw in last year's Auburn game with New Mexico State is what happened this year. I mean, Jerry Keel and Tim Beck, 2-0 against the state of Alabama in the last 2 seasons. Not shabby, and I'm excited about the Auburn game now coming up in a few weeks. But congratulations, Vanderbilt, on a well-earned win. That's my first take. How's that? Is that too much?
Absolutely. Not at all, Darren. Vanderbilt, I believe, their first ever win against a top five, uh, a team ranked in the top five.
Yep.
Great win for the program. Clark
Yeah.
Lee, a great moment for him as he continues to
Absolutely.
try to build that program. And it's in a great environment. Nashville's a great city. Yeah, the stadium doesn't compare to other
No.
SEC powerhouses, but they're trying to get there. And I think Clark Lee has got them in a good direction, going in a good direction. And Darren, you and all other Commodores fans should be celebrating from here on out. You'll talk
Absolutely.
about this game for the rest of your life.
It's funny that you say that. I'll just say this really really quickly. We were talking Saturday night and even talking today. I think I've mentioned before on this, and my father-in-law, his father was a Tulane alum and a huge Tulane fan, and had watched LSU just destroy Tulane for 40 years, and then Tulane finally won, and he couldn't help himself. He gets up in the middle of the restaurant. It's like, "Go Tulane!" It kind of felt like that. That'll be my story. Go Vanderbilt. So yes, we will be talking about this for a long time.
As you should, my friend, as you should. It was a great win for Vanderbilt. I agree with your takeaways. They led this game from start to finish. It was a clear clear that they won time of possession was what really stood out to me.
Incredible.
And the gutsy play calling, the 4th and 1
Oh, yeah.
pass that turned into a touchdown.
Turned into a
Wow,
touchdown.
absolutely. It's one of those calls where you're going to be a hero or you're going to be the goat. People are not the goat. Um, I just lost my train of
A
thought.
hero or a zero? How's that? Is that
Hero
what
or
we
zero. That sounds great. And people are going, why in the world did you make that call? But
Yep.
when it works,
Yeah.
well, that's what happens.
Yep.
I,
Absolutely.
I want to say a few things to Alabama fans because you're taking a lot of grief right now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we've all experienced painful upsets. I remember, I think it was 2017 when Troy came into Baton Rouge and beat LSU. Those
Mhm.
kind of losses are mortifying, but they are not season-ending losses. I think Alabama is still very much in play to be a
Mhm.
playoff game, but it's going to be a hard road, and the road just got a lot more narrow.
Mhm.
There is no room, I think, here on out for another loss. Which this week they have South Carolina, which Shane Beamer and they just dropped a dud against Ole Miss.
Just a roller coaster.
Then they've got a trip to Tennessee on October 19th, and I'm going to talk about Nico in a little bit. What's going on with the Tennessee offense? Then they've got Missouri at home, who got blown out by A&M this past
Yeah.
Saturday. Then they travel to LSU on November 9th, which will, regardless of the records, is always a tough game when those two schools get together. And then they've got Oklahoma on the 23rd. They have to go to Norman for that. So, of course, the place is
That's
going to be
tough.
electric.
Yeah.
And then they finish with the Iron Bowl against Auburn. So they have a tough road to go here, but all is not lost. Was it Jalen Milroe's best game? Absolutely not. He had
Exactly.
310 yards rushing or 310 yards passing. He threw for a touchdown. He rushed for a touchdown, but he threw a pick six. Uh, the rushing attack was almost non-existent, 84 total yards. You don't expect that from a Bama team, less than 100 yards rushing. Give credit to Vanderbilt. Aside from the statistics, though, Darren, I was concerned that Alabama looked somewhat lifeless out there. Why do we have to be here at this time? Why do we have to be playing at Vanderbilt? Uh, I don't know what was going on. I wasn't in the locker room. I didn't talk to the coaches, but they just seemed off the whole game. And I don't know if that was a product of them looking ahead or relishing in the fact that they beat Georgia, which was a huge victory. Huge victory. And that's why you can't count this Alabama team out. But certainly some concerns. I think you have to start with, this was a baptism by fire for Kalen DeBoer. Welcome to the SEC. 1 minute, people are saying after the Georgia win, "Oh, everybody's forgetting about Nick Saban now. We got a new sheriff in town, and we haven't skipped a beat." And then the next week, eh, the SEC is stacked top to bottom. You cannot take anybody for granted or take anybody lightly. I think I heard Diego Pavia today on the Dan Patrick Show talking about even at the coin toss, there was some jawing going back and forth with the Alabama players, Vanderbilt players, and who knows what that played into it. That happens every game,
Absolutely.
but certainly a huge win for Vanderbilt, a very tough loss for Alabama,
Hmm.
but Crimson Tide fans, your season is not over. You can right this ship and you can still get into the playoffs.
Absolutely. I think that's a great takeaway and a valid point. And I'm actually going to make my second takeaway kind of a little bit of a piggyback onto yours. I'm going to talk directly to Alabama fans, and it's not just to pile on. Just for the record, I do not have to start this with, I don't want to seem like I'm picking on, okay? This is not going to be a pile on. But as someone who, as a fan base, Vanderbilt, who has experienced heartbreaking losses regularly, I want to share with the Alabama fans and give maybe just a little bit of advice. Again, not to pile on, but maybe give just a little bit of advice. I was listening to an Alabama podcast today. I wanted to hear what Alabama people had to say about the loss, not just the national media, and I think there were 3 people total that were a part of this podcast, and 2 of them spent a solid 10 minutes on Kalen DeBoer's shirt that he wore on the sidelines and what that said about the program, what it had to do with the loss, what it this, and so I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to say, Alabama fans, don't be that fan base. Let's not make a loss about a t-shirt or a workout shirt, whatever. I mean, it was weird. I'll also throw that out there. It was an odd wardrobe choice, for lack of a better term, but that don't do that. If you want something or someone to be upset about, I don't think I would. It would be Kalen DeBoer and his shirt as much as it would be Kane Womack, who came to Alabama from South Alabama, and his defense. We talked about the 400 yards of offense, the 42 minutes of ball control. Your offense, literally, with what they had to work with, did everything they could. They had the ball for 18 minutes and scored 35 points. They were 50% on third down. Your offense averaged 8.8 yards per play. Your offense did everything they could. Your defense just couldn't get Vanderbilt off the field. So, Alabama fans, if you're going to be upset, please don't make it about a shirt. Be upset with your defense coordinator. Vanderbilt fans, blaming the refs, blaming the field conditions, blaming the weather, but we've been through it all. None of it works. None of it makes you feel better. Don't worry about Coach DeBoer's shirt. Hope that your defensive coordinator has a better game plan next week. That's kind of where I would set up shop and be frustrated if it were me, not sideline wardrobe. Just throwing it out there.
Good insight, Darren. The emotion that's attached to this game
Absolutely.
fuels a lot of that. You're trying to process what just happened, and
Mm-hmm.
I've heard from Alabama fans this never should have happened, but it did happen. It did
But it did.
happen.
That's right.
So you move on from that. I've heard people compare this to Nick Saban's his first year at Alabama when they lost to UL Monroe.
Yep.
Uh, that's apples to oranges. Saban was
I agree.
building a team. This team was the number one team in the country, had just
Mm-hmm.
defeated Georgia the
Mm-hmm.
week before. So, yes, it is a devastating loss. I think your point's important, though, Darren. We look for solutions rather than to harp on
Mm-hmm.
what the coach was wearing or little idiosyncrasies like that, little nuances that
Yeah.
we want to try to make into
Yeah.
molehills, make into big things. So I think you're spot on. Who cares what shirt he's wearing?
And if I can give one more little small piece of advice, cheer for Vanderbilt the rest of the season, because every win Vanderbilt has makes this loss look not as bad. I'm just saying, you want Vanderbilt to be undefeated. Just come on board. It's okay. Come on board. I'll just throw that out as well.
If you're looking for a third party candidate to support in this November election, vote for Darren Shavers.
Running for president of the bandwagon Vanderbilt fans. Come on, I got you. Come on. I'll lead you in the right direction. That's
My second takeaway is going to take us away from the conversation about Alabama and the Vanderbilt game. I want to focus on the Tennessee offense. I think there's some disturbing developments with how this offense is playing. When you look at how they started the season, Chattanooga, 69-3 victory. Nico threw for 314 yards. North Carolina State, we thought the Wolfpack were better than they are,
Mhm.
and Tennessee blew them out 51-10. Nico threw for 211 yards. They had a 71-0 victory over Kent State. Nico threw for 173 yards. And then they had that monumental Saturday night game in Norman against Oklahoma. Nico was 13 of 21 for 194 yards. He threw for one touchdown. We sat back and thought, well, that Sooner defense is pretty dang tough. That had a lot to do with Nico's statistics. Yes and no. I think there's cause for concern in Knoxville, and we saw that in the Arkansas game. Remember, Arkansas, which defeated Tennessee 19-14, granted, Darren, I think that last touchdown, that was strategy on Tennessee's part. Let them score so we can get the ball back with the expectation we're going to go down in the field and score and win this game. It didn't work out that way. Arkansas, though, won. Nico's statistics 17 out of 29 for 158 yards, averaged 5.4 yards a pass, no touchdowns, no interceptions. That's good, but a QBR of 39.5. Every defense in the SEC has dogs on it, and you could say that about Arkansas as well. They've got one of the top defensive ends in the conference. He's going to be a high draft pick, first round draft pick, I believe. But the fact that Nico did not step up against Arkansas is a cause for concern. I thought Heupel's game plan against OU was we're going to get in here. It's going to be crazy. We're going to do what we need to leave with a victory. Arkansas, though, raises some concerns for me. I did not expect this. You expect Tennessee to score more than 14 points against an unranked team. So I'm very concerned about where Nico is, his development, his seeing the field, his making plays when he needs to make plays. The talent is there. The execution right now, I think, is questionable. Tennessee fans, you might want to be watching this. I'm sure Heupel is going to address it. They've got some big games still coming up, and they're going to need Nico to play at an elite level. And right now, I'm not sure he's there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and you made some really, you can really see in the stats that you threw out there that kind of that almost a regression of Nico's game. But something that popped into my head where you were talking, I want to throw this out and see what you think about it. During the season, Josh Heupel has talked a lot about focusing on we're going to be a balanced team. We're not just a passing team. We're going to run the ball. He made a big deal after I think, was it the Oklahoma game where he talked about we're a defensive team and he referenced Reggie White. And uh, is it, could some of this that's going on is maybe Josh Heupel is overthinking this a little bit and throwing off balance or, affecting the game plan too much or his strategy too much by trying to find those balances? Could that possibly be part of what's going on?
Absolutely. Heupel, though, has been consistent in saying their identity is they're going to be a defensive ball team.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're going to excel on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, Heupel, you look at his roots, you look where he came from, you look where he played. Of course, every coach wants to have a balance. You rarely hear a
Right.
coach say, "We want to be unbalanced on offense."
Hmm.
They want to. Every team in the SEC wants to be able to run the ball. Think about it, when you play against Ole Miss, you want to be able to run the ball because you want time of possession to keep the ball out of Ole Miss's high octane offensive hands, just like
Absolutely.
Vanderbilt did with Alabama. Keep the ball out of Jalen Milroe's hands. Even when Milroe's having a bad game, he can still beat you. So you keep the ball out of his hands. And Vanderbilt executed a game plan that worked to perfection for them. Heupel is doing that as well, but I think there's more going on here than that. I watched the game with Arkansas, and Darren, did you notice anything? Or maybe it's just me, or if you're watching or listening, if you notice something, I'd love to hear some feedback from you.
Absolutely.
But there just didn't seem to be something wasn't clicking with Nico, and
Hmm.
it seemed to all culminate in the last play of the game where he ran out of bounds.
Yep.
When you looked on instant replay, nobody was open.
Yep.
Nobody was open. But that's the ball game. You go ahead and you throw that ball up for grabs. At that point, who
Hmm.
cares if it's intercepted? Because that's the last play of the game.
Yep.
Running out of bounds, you didn't give your team a chance to win in
Nope.
that. And that disturbed me, the
Hmm.
decision making in that particular moment. Now, maybe he thought he could get out of bounds and there'd still be a second left on the clock. I don't know. That's a possibility, but I do think there are some alarming signs with Nico right now
Yep.
that need to be corrected as they get into the meat of the SEC schedule.
Again, great points and some really great observations. I think if I'm a Tennessee fan, you're confirming and well, actually probably even creating new fears for me as I hear the way you outline that, because I think those are some really great points, a great takeaway.
How about your third takeaway, Darren?
All right. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but Vanderbilt and Alabama, and I'm just playing. That's not my third takeaway. I'm not going to make all three about, although Vanderbilt did win and I was there. All right. Let's move on.
Yeah.
All right. So, my third takeaway actually feeds into or is fed by this weekend, but it's not just about Vanderbilt, Alabama. I also think you can look at what you just talked about with Arkansas, Tennessee. We've mentioned the Texas A&M Missouri game. I think we are seeing in a very pronounced way that no one is safe, and the talent divide I think is closing a little bit more than we even anticipated, because a lot of the teams we talked about being these elite teams are turning out kind of not to look that way. Not that they don't have elite talent, not that not taking anything away from those teams, but there seems to be a closing talent gap. And I think margin of victory shows that. So far this season, the margin of victory in SEC games, and this is just since week three, starting in week three, we had at least three or more SEC conference games every single week. So I didn't, margin of victories were so ridiculous in the first 2 weeks. When everybody was playing non-conference teams, I didn't even include those. So since we started real competitive conference play beginning in week three, we're at 10 points, almost 11 points in margin of victory. And I don't say this to slight anybody, because as a Vanderbilt fan, I don't ever want to take shots at somebody that's not having a good season. But if you remove margin of victories that include Mississippi State and Florida, because they seem to kind of take it on the chin the most this year so far, that actually slides down to almost 9 points, just over 9 points. So the margin of victory in non-conference games is just barely over a touchdown. It's not even a touchdown and a field goal this year. And here's another, going back to this weekend, here's another crazy stat. The single largest margin of victory in a conference game this year is the A&M upset over Missouri. So the biggest margin of victory in any of the conference games that have been played this year is an upset. When a top 10 team was taken down, now, albeit A&M was ranked, and I understand that. So it's not like the Vanderbilt, Alabama, where one's unranked and one's not, or even Tennessee, Arkansas. A&M was ranked, but still, a top 10 team was taken down by another conference team, and it was the largest margin of victory in any conference game this season. No one is safe. It doesn't matter who you're playing on any given week. As a fan, you better hope that your players and your coaches have not checked out and assumed that they're going to win that game, because I just don't think that's the case in any games. And even if your team wins, for the most part, we've seen it's going to be a tough game. It's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot for the remainder of the season of people sitting back and saying, well, that was the 4 touchdown victory we thought it would be. I just don't. I don't think there probably. I know there will be some exceptions, but I, I don't think you're safe. I think you're watching a 1 to 2 score game, and you're afraid you're going to lose that game no matter who you're playing the rest of the season, which as fans can be difficult depending on your team, but can be super exciting as well. That makes me excited about the rest of the season.
Parity is the word in the SEC now.
Absolutely.
For years,
Absolutely.
Vanderbilt was a joke.
Hmm.
It's not a tough place to play. It's an easy victory. That all changed Saturday. That
Absolutely.
Vanderbilt served notice that they are going to give everybody they play a ball game.
Yeah.
So there are no easy games in the SEC, and that's another reason, top to bottom, the SEC is the best conference in the country. And
Absolutely.
so I'm right with you, Darren. I'm thrilled to watch how the rest of this season unfolds.
What's your third takeaway?
Connor Wegman, he was completely off our radar last
Yeah.
week. In fact, I was talking about this kid, Marcel Reed, the freshman who has stepped in when
Mm-hmm.
Wegman was sidelined with the shoulder injury. And I think I even made the point that it's his job to lose. He may be the incumbent, the starter from here on out. And then Wegman starts the game against Missouri, and all he promptly does is complete 18 out of 22 pass attempts and throw for 276 yards in leading the Aggies to a 41-10 romp over the ninth ranked team in the country, the Missouri Tigers. They've got their list of problems, but let's not take away from A&M one single bit here. They played a complete game. Mike Elko, I would say whatever his plan was, he's ahead of it right now. You take away that close loss to Notre Dame, the first game of the season. I think if they played Notre Dame again, they'd beat Notre Dame. You look at how they're trending and the remaining schedule that they have. They've got a tough one. They have LSU on October 26th, but the Tigers are coming to Kyle Field, so that's a home game for the Aggies. And then they've got the game that a lot of us have circled on the calendar. They end their season against the Texas Longhorns, currently ranked number one. They get them also in College Station. So they've got those two huge tests. But if they pull off a victory against one of those, they're going to be in the playoff discussion. This is incredible what Mike Elko is doing. Regardless if you like A&M or not, you cannot dismiss the job that he is doing. And now he's got Wegman back from injury, and Wegman showed out against a top 10 team this past Saturday. His confidence is only going to increase from here on out. I like if Connor Wegman can stay healthy. That's my if here. That's my caveat. If he can stay healthy, we're going to be talking a lot more about A&M in future weeks.
That's such a great point. It was incredible to see just kind of that. Even the moment when Wegman walks out on the or runs out on the field, it's like, holy moly, here we go. Let's see what's going on. And he was unafraid of the moment. That's a great point. And boy, I tell you, you talk about administration taking on the chin for a long time about the silliness of the whole Jimbo thing. It seems like they did the best they could over. I mean, this seems to be the right call right now.
No question about it. No question about it. On to four down territory where we give you the sure thing pick of the week, the upset pick of the week. But before we go to the coming week, we dial back and take one last look at the week before. And we do that in two ways: our brown bag pick of the week and our coach's post game quote of the week. Darren, who is your brown bag for last week?
I'm going to, and I would like to first of all, before I even say which fan base I'm going to take a shot at, that I am spreading the wealth this week. I have not, even with the win over Alabama, I have not taken all my shots in one place. I'm going to take a shot and give a brown bag to the South Carolina fan base. The things that I have seen on Twitter and even listening to some of the national media podcasts and stuff, the absolute beating that Shane Beamer has taken over his first series fake punt. And how dumb of a call that was, how they can't believe what is he doing, all of this different stuff. If it works, they are screaming from the mountaintops, that's Beamer ball, baby. It's Beamer ball. You know what? You can't if you celebrate your coach willing to take those chances, you can say, "Oh, wouldn't have taken that chance." Don't know that that was the best, but to lose your mind because he did the very thing that you always celebrate when it works, I shame, everybody knows your name. That's not okay. You got to have some balance in that. You can't just lose your mind because again, if it were Beamer ball, baby, there'd probably been an uptick of sales of Beamer ball T-shirts or something because people would have lost their mind about that's nobody should try that, but it worked. He's a special teams genius. So you can't be ready to run him out of town and lose your mind because it didn't work. Can you say it was a bad call? Can you say wish you wouldn't have? Absolutely. But you can't freak out when you've spent the entire time he's there celebrating Beamer ball. So just that's my have a little bit of chill. Let's find a little bit of balance. Brown bag to the South Carolina fans that haven't been able to when it comes to that one call during the game. That's how about you? Who's your brown bag pick?
I'm giving this week's brown bag to Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach at Missouri. We've talked a lot about the job he's done at Missouri, particularly last year. We were singing his praises.
Mm-hmm.
This year, something, and we've mentioned this before, Darren, is off.
Yep.
To take your top 10 team into College Station and get thumped like they did, there are massive issues on both sides of the ball for Missouri.
Yep.
You saw players pouting on the sideline during
Mm-hmm.
that game. Not a good look at all. Can Drinkwitz, can he right the ship? I don't know. But right now, almost losing to Boston College. They barely beat Vanderbilt.
Yep.
Which, of course, Vanderbilt, as we know now,
Yeah.
is a pretty good football team.
Exactly.
But that getting, as you pointed out, the largest margin of victory in an SEC game so far this
Mm-hmm.
year. I think you got to give Eli Drinkwitz the brown bag. He's going to have to put it over his Darth Vader helmet, and he's got to figure things out before this ship completely sinks for this season.
It's unfortunate that we have to do that to our good buddy Drink, but I very well said. I think it's very accurate brown bag.
Darren, I'm not sure how much suspense there is here. The post-game quote of the week. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Is it possibly Clark Lee?
There could be something to that. Let me go with the element of surprise. Is it? Is it not? Let's see.
But the only place you play in the SEC that's not hard to play is Vanderbilt.
Oh, how did that get in there? What just
Oh,
must be some kind of
darn.
satellite feed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Remember the Alabama fans you became friends with on Saturday? That friendship just went in the toilet.
They didn't like that. Even Dave and Chris, as nice as they were, probably didn't like that one. My bad. I had to. It had to be brought up at least once, but that's not actually.
Unsubscribe.
Please don't. I was playing. I was no. All right.
Oh, wait,
we do.
Wait. I'm waiting. You're not going to say I don't mean to pile on Alabama.
I don't mean to pick on Alabama.
Oh,
all right, we do actually have a Clark Lee quote. So this time, no suspense. This is actually Clark Lee in the press conference after the game.
That's what a win looks like. It's a team win. That's what our program is. And we have everything we need here to replicate that. We were a more disciplined team tonight. We cleaned up the penalties. I was proud of that. Hopefully there's a great lesson for us to pull forward from that. And, we need to celebrate this and enjoy it and savor the moment. And then in 12 hours, we need to turn the page and focus on Kentucky. And that's what we'll do. This isn't an arrival for our program. It's a beginning in some ways. I do feel like this is a breakthrough moment for us, but it only matters in terms of the climb we're on in the journey if we turn and get right back into our process. So again, obviously you know how much this means to me. I love our university. I love our city. I love our program. This is why I came back. It's meant to be emotional because, again, I've bled a lot into this, and it just feels great to be able to celebrate with the team that I love and care about. And I look forward to doing that more in the future.
Okay. I love everything about that. Even taking away, it might be the biggest win in program history. The emotion, the message that even in that moment, the message that he was giving to the team of what happens next. Give it 12 hours, turn the page. What happens next is all that matters. You can't just say, look what we did once. everything about that was like a minute and 11 seconds. It was an amazing a minute and 11 seconds of a post game quote. I loved everything about it.
Happy for Clark Lee. He's
Absolutely.
taking his lumps at Vanderbilt. It's a tough place to build a program. Kudos to him on the biggest win in program history. And hopefully they continue to trust the process, his players, and they continue to climb. It's good for the SEC.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to our sure thing pick of the week. Darren, who is your sure thing pick of the week? Bet the farm on, guaranteed victory.
Well, see, I walked out to the farm and I found an olive tree. And I pulled one branch from that olive tree, and now I hold it in my hand and I'm extending it to the Alabama fans that I've alienated so far during this episode. My sure thing pick is Alabama. If I'm South Carolina, be very, very afraid because I'm assuming whatever created the scenarios that led to the Vanderbilt win last week and what Vanderbilt was able to do on the field and win that game, Alabama will find a way to correct, and I'm assuming correct with a vengeance. So Alabama is definitively my sure thing pick over South Carolina this week. How about you? What's your sure thing?
Darren, as you wax poetic with that pick, the imagery of the olive branch and carrying it with you, I thought for a moment you were quoting lyrics from a U2 song. I thought Bono would be so proud of what Darren is doing right now. That's some serious poetical writing. I'm impressed.
There might have been something in there. We might have to explore that at another time.
My sure thing pick of the week is the LSU Fighting Tigers. Ole Miss
Nice.
is coming to town. Last year was a shootout. If they
Mm-hmm.
get into a shootout with Ole Miss again, it's going to be the same result. But I'm optimistic that Blake Baker is bringing this defense along. The secondary is going to be tested immensely. That D line has got to get to Jackson Dart.
Yep.
The linebackers have got to step up. If they do that, I have confidence in Nussmeier. He's going to lead that offense. He's going to get them in the end zone. I've got LSU sure thing pick of the week in Baton Rouge.
Nice pick. Very nice pick.
How about your upset pick of the week?
You know, just for the sake of being able to fuss about it, I'm going to pick Vanderbilt as my upset pick. Now, I know one win doesn't make a season, but this coming week, Vanderbilt is going to Lexington and playing Kentucky. And right now, at time of recording, Kentucky is let me make sure I'm getting this correct. Kentucky is a 14-point favorite. I know it's in Lexington, and I understand that. But I don't think you can watch what Vanderbilt's offense was able to do last week and pick Kentucky as a 2-point, as a 2-score favorite. I don't think that's not justified in what the last 2 weeks have looked like. I don't like that at all. I think Vanderbilt can use that as fuel, just like they did with all the other outside conversation that took place as far as the team seeing and hearing it. And it propels yet another moment that Vanderbilt fans are going to love, and they pull off the upset against Kentucky. And if they do, by the way, and I'm 2-0, I will pick them no matter who they play in the upset pick until they lose. Just for the record, we can go ahead and throw that out there.
Beautiful. You are as happy as I've ever seen you in my life.
It's been a good 3 days or whatever at this point. Yeah. How about you? Who's your upset pick?
I'm going to the Cotton Bowl in the epic Red River rivalry, a game that has produced so many memorable moments. Texas comes in at number 1, the only undefeated team in the SEC in terms of SEC play. They're the last one standing. Historically, when number 1 comes into this game, they're ripe for an upset. I know on paper it looks like Oklahoma is completely outmatched. They've got a stellar defense. I think the defense is going to step up. Yeah, they got a freshman at quarterback, but don't count out the Sooners. I think it's going to be a huge upset. They're going to be celebrating. all the way driving back from Dallas to Norman on I-35, celebrating the whole way, playing Boomer Sooner. So give it to me. Let me hear it. Boomer, I can't hear you. I can't
Sooner,
hear you.
I'll go in.
I've got the Sooners winning.
Nice. Great pick. That's awesome. That's gonna add even more excitement to the game as we watch it. Great pick.
Thank you so much for watching and listening to, I hope most of the time it's coherent. It may sound like nonsense some of the time.
There could be times.
Do us a huge favor. This show, we make it available completely free. All we ask, would you hit the subscribe button?
Mm-hmm.
Subscribe to the show. When new episodes come out, you'll be notified immediately. Where else can you watch a Vanderbilt fan celebrate a once-in-a-lifetime moment
Exactly.
like Darren is doing right now? So hit that subscribe button. New episodes drop every Tuesday, sometimes in the morning, sometimes late at night, depending on our technical issues that we work through. And by we, I mean Darren works through all those technical issues. But we appreciate you so much for coming along on this journey, for loving football like we love football, particularly
Absolutely.
SEC football. So till next time, y'all take care.
Oh, and to quote Nate Bargatze, shout out Vanderbilt with the win over Alabama. Have a great week.
Thank you for making the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast your go-to sports show. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show if you haven't already. Your feedback is important. Let us know what you think about this week's show. Send an email to brewandshavers@gmail.com or text to our text line, 318-390-3599. We look forward to hearing from you.